Okay, so today's cardinal lesson, we want to take the veil off of the RMD worry, or because that's really the worry inside, it's one of the worries inside of IRA 401k planning. And most people that we experience do not study RMDs at all. And it is something, if you're in your 60s and you're starting to put together a retirement plan, a strategy for the whole of your retirement, and if you come to us, you don't really need to study them, but we've studied them, and you're going to need to acknowledge them, and we're going to get a plan together to deal with these. So what I want to do in the beginning here is just RMD stands for required minimum distribution. Used to start at 70 and a half. The Secure Act raised it to 72, and then Secure Act 2.0 raised it to 73. So that kind of sounds good. Is I got a problem I have to deal with in the future, and I haven't done anything about it. And now the government has moved it out a year or two or three, and that's kind of like they're just going to allow you to not do anything about it for even further. And so what I would propose is, and we're going to do today on this video, is just talk a little bit about what exactly is this RMD, and how can you prepare for it. So I actually would like to bring Tom on with the show notes, and Tom can show us the chart that we actually use to come up with these numbers.
Yeah. And so these show notes are in the link below of our video. They're also on our website, but it just goes into more detail of what's on the board here. First page is always just a picture of what we have on the board. But the first page, and really, if we look at the board, there's 6 strategies and we'll go through each 6 to really plan around for RMDs. And the first strategy is just the do nothing strategy. We don't have a plan. We leave it there. We maybe don't need to live off of it, or maybe we're taking a little bit out as needed. But then we get to 73, and now we're on the government's plan. Is we have to follow the rules that they have laid out of how fast we have to take this out. So the next page in the show notes really goes over what that is. And so how this works is we get to 73. And so that, we can go into the specifics, but essentially they look at the account balance of the previous year. They look at the age you are that year, and they go and you have to take a certain percentage out of that account. So at 73, we start at 3.77%, just under 4%. And then that goes up every year. That's based off this table. They just updated it fairly recently. But we've highlighted some of the key ages, 76, 4.22, 80 is 4.95, and it just goes up from there. I mean, you start getting to your 80s or 90s, you're having to take quite a large amount out. And so if we look kind of back at the board there, you can see we've done this in the examples is we've taken someone who has $1 million in their IRA. If you have less, you can just cut the numbers down proportionally. But if you have $1 million in your IRA, we assume some growth rate. I think we used 5% on the board. It's about 1.5 million by the time from 65 to 73. So now this number has grown, and now we have to take out 4%. That's right around $56,000. I think a little more than that.
Let me jump in here. So number one is the do nothing now strategy. And frankly, this is a lot of people that come in to see us. Now, they don't all have $1 million. So I'm sure some of you are saying, who's he talking about here? I don't have $1 million in my IRA. Well, if you have 500,000, just divide everything in half. If you got 2 million, double everything. And then the second thing I'm going to tell you is you don't have to bite off all of one of these strategies. Most people that come into us for financial planning, they have some combination of all of these strategies and even more. These aren't the only 6 that we offer, but I just wanted to illustrate what you can do to prepare for this day that's coming. And it's at age 73, you're going to have to take out 3.77% and pay taxes on that amount. Okay. Doesn't sound like a huge amount, but as your IRA grows, it could be a substantial amount. And we have people that have far in excess of this that come to us for advice. And when we really run those numbers in the computer and they start seeing the amount of these RMDs, which an RMD is really, it's required, required when the government makes me do something with my money. That's what the word required means. I don't like that. Minimum implies that you really only want to take the minimum and you want to wait as long as you possibly can to take the minimum. And then distribution is just saying you got to take it out of the IRA and pay taxes on it. So the whole concept of required minimum distributions is the government saying you haven't taken any money out of this so far, or you've taken little money out, and you've accumulated this big balance. You've enjoyed these tax advantages and tax deferral forever. Now it's our turn. I'm your silent partner, the IRS. I got a mortgage against this thing. You got to start pulling out money according to our schedule. So this is the government's plan. And what these 6 strategies are, actually 5 of them are, is your plan according to your needs. This is to meet the government's needs. And it might coincidentally meet your needs, but the whole idea behind these strategies is to reach your goals. So if we look at the first one, which is do nothing now, well, a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're talking about a guy with $1 million. And then most people, if they have $1 million and all their money is in an IRA or most of it, and they're retired, they need to start pulling some of this out now just to live. So those people are on a distribution strategy. But I will tell you that most people that are doing that, they're trying to take as little as they possibly can out because they don't want to run out of money when they get to be 80 or 85. And so a lot of them are going to have difficulty understanding, okay, so how much can I take? And then, they're not as worried about 73 as the people that are taking out nothing. A lot of people at 65 are still working, okay? Or one of them still working. And there's many people that own a business and they've got this money accumulated. They're still making, that's me. I'm almost 65. I own a business. I plan to keep working. I don't plan to take any distributions, but I do have a plan for this minimum distribution thing when it comes around. I'm not going to let the government set the amount. I'm not on the government's plan. I've done my own plan. So the do nothing now strategy just implies that you're going to let the money sit there and grow and invest and look at, and then I'll deal with the problem 8 years from now when it comes around. And I'm going to show you what that looks like, because we do have people come to us right at minimum distributions. They don't really know how to get this number. They don't know all that. And they're coming to us for that. And they're coming to us for advice. And there's less things we can do at 73 than we can do at 65. But what I want to point out, in the do nothing now strategy, I used 5% growth for 8 years, just simply because we can offer you 5% growth just in an annuity for 8 years. So if you had $1 million and you wanted to just set it and forget it, you can go to, you could put it all into this annuity. I know I can get you 5% or more, just a little bit more. And that $1 million would grow to $1.5 million. And beginning at 73, your minimum distribution at 73 would be $56,550. So that money's going to come at you. It's going to be added to your other income, and you're going to have to pay taxes on it. And if just kind of going along, this is assuming that it grows past the 1.5 million, and the growth rate is the same as these numbers over here. It was too complicated in the example to do all of that, but the point is, by the time you're 85 or 90, these numbers are up around $100,000 worth of minimum distribution, just at a fairly low interest rate. So if you're able to earn more than that, or it's invested and it earns more than that over time, then you're going to have substantially more in required minimum distributions. And my suggestion is that you prepare for that. Now, I'm going to go to the next example of a strategy, This is for the people that need money now. I mean, this $1 million is there for me to live off of, for my wife and me. And I need an income now, but I don't know how much to take out. Because if I take out 10% or $100,000, it doesn't take very long at doing the math. And then you have a bad year like 2022, where the whole investment goes down. You could be out of money somewhere in your 70s. So we can't take out 10%. Even 5%, you projecting that out with different growth rates could be an issue. So what this thing does is you could purchase, and I'd like Tom to bring it up in the show notes, the Penn Mutual, and I'd really like Tom to take it from here.
Yeah. And so this is what's called a single premium immediate annuity, SPIA for short. And this is where you put the money with the insurance company and they guarantee an income, in this example, for a husband and wife that will last as long as either one of them live. So it lasts the rest of their life guaranteed, whether that's, 20 years, 30 years, doesn't matter. And so this is an example that we ran right before the show. These pricings can change. It is based off age. So if your age is different, it could be different numbers. But for this example, $1 million going in would produce an income of $63,514 guaranteed for the rest of their life. And so one of the nice things about that is it gives them an amount that they can count on most people take it monthly, every month coming in, where they don't have to worry about the performance in the market. It's an income they can live on, and that number is plenty to cover any RMD requirement they might have. And so therefore they don't have to worry about this RMD problem out into the future. And so you really come up with a plan. You have a known amount. This is higher the distribution rate. You can see the annual payout percentage of 6.4%. That's higher than what we would recommend if you were in a traditional stock and bond mix. I mean, one that's often quoted in literature is 4% that they suggest that you take out. 6.4 is obviously higher than 4% initial starting amount, so it allows you to take out more and have the comfort knowing that it's going to be around as long as either one of you live.
Okay. So number 3 is similar to number 2 in the sense that once you start taking out money for both you and your spouse, and this shows at 73 that you're waiting 8 years till you actually hit minimum distributions to take anything out. Now you're going to get really just about double what you were getting up here. You're going to get $126,000 a year, and that's for both of your lives. That's for your life, and it's for your spouse's life. So if one of you dies at 80 and the other one lives to 95, these checks are going to be coming in every year as long as you're around. And so I want Tom to show you that in the show notes and go over that a little bit more.
And I'll just point out these full illustrations are in the show notes. So the Penn Mutual one I'll show, it's only 2 pages long. It's much simpler. This next one, this option 3 on the board, is with North American. It's like 16 pages long. It's a lot more pages, a little more complicated. So if you get in there and you look at it, you say, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to show you kind of a good summary page to look at. But call us if you have questions because we can walk through it in your specific situation. But we're going to scroll down to page, I think it was page 7. And so this does a good job of showing what the guarantees are in this policy. Like Hans was saying, you put the same $1 million in, and this is a scenario where maybe you don't need the income now, but you're expecting to need it out into the future. Maybe you're still working. I mean, there could be all sorts of reasons that you don't need it yet, but you are going to need it at some point. And so we put $1 million in and we wait until 73, which is the time that you have to start taking money out anyways. And it would guarantee an income of $126,789 a year. Again, similar to number 2, is that amount lasts the rest of your life, both you and your spouse's life. And so it's something you can't outlive. It's coming in guaranteed, no matter what. There could be some growth in the underlying account value, that showed on some of these later pages. I don't want to spend too much time talking over that. So if you're interested, look at the proposal or give us a call and look through that. Again, you can see there's a lot more pages in this one. But again, I think the point being is really coming up with a strategy of how to draw down this money in an intelligent way and not run the risk of running out. I think that's where number two and number three are really helpful, is they show you a way to live off this money you've saved up, but not have the risk of being out of money like in your 80s or something like that.
Yeah, there's no risk of loss in either one of those. So next one.
I'm going to make one more point on number
Okay.
two and number three is if you were to, both of you were to pass away during that time, you put the money in there and then you're hit by a car in 5 years. There is still a significant amount that would go to your beneficiaries in both number two and number three.
Yeah, good point. So number four strategy, we have the Roth conversion over 8 years. And this is the person who is not exactly sure about cash flows. Maybe they're still working, maybe they're retired and they have other sources of income, but they don't like this lean against their, once they completely understand that the fact that the IRS is their silent partner in their IRA and the taxes are going to come due sooner or later. So they're going to go the Roth conversion route. And one of the key points with Roth conversions is you don't want to do too much too soon because you're going to push yourself into very high tax brackets. Now, with some clients, we end up doing this because they look at the whole problem and it just makes sense for them to get into high brackets and bite off a lot of it. But with many clients, this is a slow process. So in this example, we got two people 65. So I'm just showing 100,000 a year because a lot of times we can put 100,000 combined with their other income. We can stay under the IRMA brackets. We can stay in the 22% bracket. Maybe creep into the 24% bracket. I'm just throwing this number out. And if you did 100,000 a conversion for 8 years, then, and you were on this 5% investment or 5% growth, you're going to have about $500,000 left in the traditional IRA at the end of the 8 year, when you're age 73. And then your minimum distribution is going to be $18,850, a more manageable amount. Okay. And then you could do something with this 500,000 at that point. You could do something now preparing for this. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to mix and match this, but I just wanted to show you the strategy in isolation with the $1 million. And then you would have about $1 million in the Roth portion of the IRA if you paid the income taxes out of other money that's sitting on the sidelines. Some people can't afford to do that. They've got to pay the income taxes on the Roth conversion actually out of the IRA. So if they do that, you're not going to have 100,000 going in every year into the Roth. You're going to have probably more like 75 or so. So to get into balances and illustrations, we could do that individually for you. But the whole concept is to build up and slowly convert over time a substantial Roth balance. And what that does for you, it gives you the possibility of tax-free income later in life, later in retirement. There are no RMDs on Roth accounts. So, and it also allows you to pass the money on to your heirs without any taxation. They're going to have RMDs themselves, but they're not going to have to pay income taxes on withdrawals from a Roth. Okay. Now, the fifth strategy is the charitable giving strategy. And again, these are for people who really don't need this money or they don't need part of it. They're concerned about the RMD strategy and perhaps already give substantial amounts to charity. And for a lot of folks that are, that reach age 70 and a half, and we can plan for this at 65. We don't have to wait till we're 70 and a half when we can do a QCD. But this is the charitable giving strategy. And the underlying concept is we're going to give away the IRA, pieces of it, starting at 70 and a half. And we're going to give it away a little bit by the year. And then when we reach 73, we're going to give away at least the amount of the minimum distribution. So in this example, we can give away starting at 70 and a half up to $100,000 a year. That's the maximum on QCDs. And we don't pay taxes on the qualified charitable distribution. And the charity doesn't pay taxes. And the amount we give counts as the RMDs. And so we have several clients that just give away this amount, or they're not at the age yet, but they plan to, and that's how they're going to do their charitable giving, and they're going to essentially avoid the taxation on that, and they're going to do their giving out of their IRA and not from their regular funds, and it counts as the RMD. And then the sixth strategy, which I don't want to get as specific on, but what we have with a lot of people is they really say that this RMD is to give to my kids, okay? Or maybe they're going to do half into the charitable giving and half into giving it to their kids. And so what we do with that is, if we're going to give it all to the kids, and we started on number 2 and we set this thing up to spit out $63,000 worth of income for life, and then we had going to have to pay taxes on that. So now we're going to have maybe 40 of it left. We're going to decide how much of the 40 we want to keep to ourselves, but there's still substantial premiums to pay to a life insurance company, maybe $20,000 a year. And so we have this going on, the $20,000 a year and net after taxes that we're putting into the life insurance. That's building a cash value. So if we wanted to get at it, just like the Roth, we could and use it. But the whole concept here is to build it up. And when we pass away, that whole death benefit of the life insurance policy just transfers right to the heirs. So we could talk all days about strategies that we construct with people to deal with this required minimum distribution thing at 73 in advance. And most of the strategies that we construct have a little piece of several of these, and we could talk all day about a whole bunch more of them, but we really just want to impress upon you is in your 60s sometime, it's appropriate for you to develop a strategy of how you're going to distribute your RMD or your IRA money to yourself, and doing something other than the government's plan for you. So I want to go through and talk about all the 7 worries that we talked about today. We talked about IRA, 401k. We covered retirement income. We covered estate planning, and we covered income taxes and estate taxes. And so with that being said, I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.